In strongman, I often get asked, pretty often actually, how I can get my foot in the door or what should I start doing to get ready for strongman. So strongman being a very dynamic sport is quite tricky to kind of know where to put your focus when you're beginning. Being that the sport started in the 60s as a TV show, it was more or less just a kind of organization to see which sport out of all the strength sports had the strongest athletes. So there was Olympic weightlifters, there was powerlifters, there was bodybuilders, there was a couple of gridiron players, there was Olympic shot putters. All different types of athletes from different types of sports were invited to this one place to basically hash it out and see who is the strongest. Events were really weird, I can remember in the first one being a lot of grip-based events, some endurance-based events, throwing events, max strength events, really anything that the organisers could really come up with on the day. So when we're looking at starting in strongman, it is difficult to kind of pick and choose what you should be focusing on. So I'm just going to run you through my recommendations on how you would get started in strongman. So first off, looking at a basic training program and how it would differ from other strength and conditioning programs. Like I said before, it's a very dynamic sport, so there's multiple facets to consider here. The main ones being max strength and muscular endurance. So if you're someone who's just, say, training at a commercial gym or a home garage and wondering how I can kind of make the switch, what I would start doing is looking at ways that you can make your training more dynamic. So let's just say you're already doing a general amount of strength work or bodybuilding work. Think of, in a way, a simple way to put it is combining the two. So if you're doing low rep ranges, sets of 3 to 5, things like that, that's great. But strongman is going to require a lot more than just max strength. You're going to have to add your muscular endurance into that too. So when you look at setting up your training program, things like cluster sets, short rest times and more powerful movements are going to be your friend here. So rather than say a standard powerlifting program where rest times are quite long, it's very technique based, we're trying to get the most out of your 1RM. We're still trying to do that in a way, but it's not as beneficial in the long run. So think about shortening your rest times, using movements that are a little bit more challenging or variable. So for a squat, for example, rather than just doing a back squat, try front squatting, try Zercher squatting, things like that. All different movements are going to help you when you're starting out. The next step to getting into strongman, I would just simply say reach out to a strongman near you. There's so many people around that are training for competitions. People come from far and wide to do competitions. So if there's one near you, reach out to them. Even if there's not, on social media, I'm sure there's someone that you follow you could reach out to and be like, hey, I'm looking to get into this. How can I get started? The likelihood of them just offering you to come and train with them and see how they do it is very high. Next step would probably just reach out to a strongman gym, anyone that's running novice comps or something like that, and just simply say, hey, I'm looking to get involved. They'll probably be able to set you up as a spotter or loader, help out on the day, just be in the presence of a competition. That's something that's going to really help you and set you up for the future and seeing if this is something for you. But going back to your training, the main aspects of strongman and the movements involved would be carry events, max strength events, a little bit of throwing events, and endurance-based events. So carries can be anything. We're talking about yoke carries, farmers carries, sandbag carries, keg carries. Man, there's so many different things that you could be carrying and that you might find in a comp. I've actually seen a washing machine as the implement in a competition before. So it's really only limited to the organizer's imagination. For max events, you're looking at overhead press and any type of implement there is. So you got your log, axles, monster dumbbells, even standard barbells are thrown in there sometimes as well. And then your deadlift events, that can vary from a standard deadlift bar to an axle bar, a frame, a deadlift bar. There's so many different types of deadlifts and different variations of these main movements that need to be considered. Then you have your loading events, which would be most likely sandbags, stones, kegs. They would be taken from point A to point B. Fastest person wins, simple things like that. So to follow on from that, you're then looking at stones. There's always stones, and then we even got vehicle pulls. So from all of that, you can see there's a lot going on in Strongman. There's a lot of things that need to be considered. So when you're training your program, if you're not at a Strongman gym, think of ways that you can just modify already existing movements to make them either a little bit harder or a little bit more challenging or dynamic. Carrying things like stacks of plates, being a little bit more creative with your training is going to help you get a start. But essentially your training program shouldn't really vary much from any other program that you see. There is more muscular endurance involved, there is more variation involved, but if you're only got access to standard gym equipment, it's up to you to make it as hard or dynamic as possible. Again, if you have any other questions on how you'd like to get started in Strongman, or to summarize up what I've just spoken about per se, the number one thing I would do is reach out to a Strongman or Strongman gym, have a chat with them, see how you can get involved in either the novice comps or just even go and watch. Preferably if you can train with someone, that'd be great. If you can't do that, reaching out to a coach is also helpful. Someone like myself, I'm always excited to answer questions in relation to Strongman. And then another thing you can do is just set up your training to be a little bit more difficult. Get creative with it. There's really no right or wrong when it comes to Strongman, and you'll see that when you start looking at competitions. Every single one changes, everyone's different. Some have really standard events, some have really kooky and weird events. So there's no right or wrong. But I hope that helps. If you have any more specific questions, don't be scared to reach out to me or anyone else in Adonis Athletics, and we'll be happy to get you started.